Alright, bottom left is Solar, top right is NightMare. Sorry guys, that was a little bit strange. Everything was just like not making sounds and opening when I was telling it to open and stuff, so that was a little bit wonky. Okay, all good. Let's dive in for some more as we get this started. Hatchery goes down on the natural, so kicking that off and getting this underway. And yeah, let's see what NightMare and Solar are going to bring us. We start on Frost Giant. This map's been pretty decent as well. I've been enjoying Frost Giant. I think it's been pretty just reasonable across the board. It's given us some good games. We've just seen, again, one of these ones that's not had anything spectacular happen on it, I would say, but just been very solid throughout. I like Frost Giant. This one I think could enter a map pool, probably with a name change, let's be realistic, and probably could enter a map pool and just be very much kind of liked across the board. I don't think, like, it's going to get vetoed a lot. I don't think it's going to be, like, one of the most hated maps or anything. I think this would just do well to kind of fit into a map pool. So, it's obviously got some narrower pathways, and as the map progresses, you can open up the map a lot more by taking down the rocks, and that's typically just how this map plays out. That's how this map works in general, so that's how that goes. There's our probe just scouting around. Going to be moving out onto the map itself and into the center there for a few moments. Flying speed is coming in, and obviously with the Stargate opening, we're not seeing anything that we're not used to seeing here. Let's get this up and rolling. With Microsoft buying Blizzard, can we expect to see a new StarCraft in the future? I don't think anyone knows, man. Like, it'd be surprising if they did nothing with the IP, because it is a big IP. Just, it's also one of those scenarios where it's like, I don't think we're talking about, like, in the next 5 years. I think it's just something they will have in the background that they can utilize at some point, maybe, but yeah. I don't know. Not being negative or anything, right? Just, like, being realistic. I think it's just fair to say that, I just don't think there's too much to expect in terms of, like, StarCraft production. Like, you know, this game is they're not going to do much in terms of StarCraft 2, so if they're not going to do much in StarCraft 2, then, you know, when will they do anything? You know, StarCraft 3? It's just, again, that's just going to be so far down the line if it ever is on the agenda to be created, right? Killing to the front initially from Solar to pressure as he's going to go and try and grab a couple of adepts off to the side. Do wonder how many Queen Pulls and Queen Walks we're going to see in general in this series. Solar can absolutely play a very aggressive set of games, and I would be surprised if he did not play a very aggressive set of games in general across the board. As the Stargate gets shut down over there. I'm just going to be seeing a couple of Queens coming back over the left-hand side. Oracle still heading down the bottom left as well, going to come into play. And just going to be heading in towards the natural too again, seeing a little bit of what's up. Just a bit of scouting for the moment then. As we work our way through this early stage of the game. Forge on the way up to back up the Void Ray play that's coming through as well. And that is the initial game plan here. There's just one Stargate still at the moment though, so maybe NightMare with this Forge coming up will have some other plans for some other ground units or so to be added on. Definitely a little bit of possibility in that regard. A few Zerglings hanging out in the center. And the Oracle just coming in. There's the potential to drop a Revelation down or so. Just keep track of things, and there is a Twilight and the Robo. So yeah, you go into a Forge early, but then you now go into the Twilight and the Robo facility. Well, it's interesting, because if you get Queen Walks right now, you're not exactly going to have the best of times, I don't think, because your Twilight and your Robo are pretty late. I guess you do have the potential to then build cannons, and maybe that's the idea. It's an interesting just order of things to get set up into, though, that's all. Just an interesting little order to start out with. This Oracle's been doing okay, picks up a few drones as well, so NightMare is able to get some damage done. Feeling is continuing to take some shots, and just going to be continuing to get pushed around. Move back over the right-hand side, and just going to be seeing our Hydra Den continuing up. Is about halfway done for the moment. All Queens continue to move into the center, and well, the Voids are going to go hunting for them. Again, charge coming up behind this. All of that is getting ready right here. A lot of build up into this next stage, as we do see our Voids going to go in after the Voids. Queens are setting up, and well, Hydras are on the way out from Solar. Hydras are pretty aggressive units. You know, usually if you're using Hydras, you want to win sooner rather than later. The sooner you win, the better. So, yeah, moving in towards the Hydras here. Definitely seems like he wants to be just aggressive in general, and we'll see how well he can make that work. The Hydras and Queens now on the far right-hand side, so they continue to gather up. The single Oracle continues down at the bottom side as well, so in it goes across the map to try and get going. The Lings and the Hydras going to continue just onto the set of rocks on the left side, and they will pick through that. So down go the rocks. Some Zealots initially starting to charge through there as well. We're beginning to get moving along, but now they decide to think twice about what they were actually about to commit into there, realizing that maybe it was not going to be the best of times. Disruptor shot to try and defend against the Hydras. Ooh, fantastic first shot from the Disruptor here. Solar coming through. Oh, the Zealots. He needs to start splitting them away. These Banelings know their duty, and that is to remove these Zealots from the equation. And once those Zealots are gone, there's not a lot of buffer for everything else, and that means the Hydras have free reign over the Voids that are out. These probes get chased away. The Banelings took down a few of those in the process as well. And this is just going to be too much damage, right? 16 workers, the third base dying. Most importantly, a lot left over for Solar as well. Like, you see a lot of these fights in this day and age where, you know, the Zerg comes out and they kill a base, but they lost everything in doing so, and so the Protoss can kind of recover. That's not really the case here. The good news is the Disruptors survived, but that's pretty much the only good news, and like I say, it's just a lot of Hydras that survived as well. Anyway, there is a fourth on the top that Solar would also like to get rid of. Some cancelling Banelings there just to try and preserve the Lings from going down. I was just going to be seeing our Hydras Queens starting to fight through here and just keeping on progressing. I mean, these Archons out as well. I mean, it's not a bad army that you've got here. It's just the army of Solar is too powerful still. Again, yes, these Hydras typically work on a bit of a timer, but they have absolutely done enough so far. And it's not like you have like a great set of splash damage up to deal with the Hydras either, right? It's, you know, if the Hydras were going to be, you know, up against like some storms and stuff right now, maybe you could be a believer. The Disruptors just don't have me believing quite as much, that's all. I don't know, it just feels like there's too many Hydras versus the splash damage that is available, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. As we do see, I mean, in the end, Solar's not able to break through and end this, but of course, right now, he's sat back on 4 bases and 74 drones, while his opponent is sitting on only 2 bases, so over time, this continues to just continue to trend into more and more so Solar's favor again, right? And should look pretty good for him to potentially take the first game of this best of 5. Bane Hydra cleans out in the center. So see how Ling's wrapping around this set of rocks over here as well. It's just working on that and seeing what they can do. Archons, Disruptors all continue to join up together here, and just going to be having our Ultra's Cavern coming in here as well, so Ultra Cavern just coming in, also just trying to make sure you've got coverage for pretty much everything going for yourself at the moment. Seemingly the current plan. Lynx and the Hydras pick their way through the rocks. It's just clearing out there as you do have a maxed out Solar pretty much ready to go. I mean, nothing to really stop him. Let's see if the splash damage will be enough. You've got up to a good amount of stuff here, right? I mean, there's a couple of Colossi, there are Disruptors, there's Archons. Maybe there is some hope here. I mean, I'm a bit more hopeful looking at this now than I was before, but there's also more out on the other side as well, right? There's Vipers here, they're available. They are going to help remove some of the splash damage that would otherwise do well against this, so that's, again, only going to be an aid during this, as we do see everything moving across the right-hand side. Colossi lasers, Solar, well, still maxed out most importantly, right? I mean, he's still set into a pretty good spot here for the most part, and should still be overall kind of feeling okay. Like I say, he's maybe not breaking through and winning out just yet, but he's doing a lot of other things very right. The probes going down, he's still keeping his opponent on only 3 bases. I like that the Ultras are coming out there a little bit sturdier against the ground army, so it does just give you a little bit of a better time there. Definitely helps out slightly. A little bit of an additional bonus as well, for sure. His Elves run in on the left-hand side, so they're going to show up as well, and still seeing the rest of this from NightMare moving down the right, and away we go to try and push in, trying to bring the fight to Solo, which, I mean, credit to him, he is only on 3 bases. He realizes if Solo picks the fight, they're always going to be kind of in a way that, you know, will just always allow Solo a way out and a way to rebuild. So at least over here, if you can win the fight somehow, the rebuild from Solo doesn't really get as much of a chance to happen, and you can just continue through and kill the bases or pick off the reinforcements as they spawn. So I would guess that's the logic here as to why NightMare wants to move on the map. He says, right, you know, now or never. Unfortunately, it's going to be never, with the advantage that Solar has really just being a little bit too great. While that want to deal damage or range, so attack upgrades are very important for range units. And if you've got Zealots in the front, they're not so much about dealing the damage as they are just buffering, so usually you just go for, you know, attacks so your Colossi, Stalkers, and everything will deal more damage, Archons, Immortals. In the bottom left-hand side, up 1-0, our blue Zerg player here is going to be Solar. Taking on the red Protoss in the upper right-hand corner of the map, it is going to be NightMare. Alright, then let's move through and see what comes out of game number 2, Tropical Sacrifice. The map with the bridges in the center. So Frost Giant has a bridge, Tropical Sacrifice has 3 bridges. Some rocks bottom right and upper left-hand sides. Kind of a choice of expansion patterns. This forward base, I think, is one that the Terrans are going to absolutely adore. 3rd base, 4th base, or 4th base, 5th base, right? That's a really nice set of expansions to take. This right side base just feels like a good map to expand on, right? There's a lot of fun, strong expansion patterns that you've got here on Tropical Sacrifice. I don't think anyone's going to be too upset about, for the most part, having to play on this, I'm pretty sure. But we'll see. You never know. As we get underway, just going to be seeing our Nexus setting up on the natural. So again, that rolling here initially. And it's going to see a couple of lings coming through as well, so... And build up and ready to start out. Just going to be seeing our hatchery going down on the left-hand side. Stargate still coming through. Wargate still coming up. It's a little bit of building, a little bit of setup going on right now in these early stages. Void Ray building and link speed on the way out. Very expected setup for the moment is I'm just going to see an Oracle to follow the Void. I mean, it wasn't double Stargate last time, so keep that in mind as well, right? That's definitely something else for us to remember a little bit. Void Ray still heading down through the bottom and just going to be seeing it coming along and having some fun, so pushing through the south side, trying to see if there's going to be any OVs to clean out, any vision to deny. As our third base goes online, we are going to opt for the linear kind of set of bases for the moment down the bottom side of the map. That gives you the bottom right out the top left as the fourth, potentially. So that's a possibility as well. The one thing I would say, if you hold here and then you try and hold like up here, is it is all choked up moving in, but maybe that's a bit of a rotation you want to make. I don't know. I think that's a fairly decent fourth base to hold as well. Honestly, this map has a lot of good expansion options. I don't think there's... It's one of those maps which I can really see there being, you know, in the future, if this mixed ladder or so. Like, a lot of games look very different on this map because you just don't quite know how well everyone is going to be able to, you know, use different expansions in every race and different matchups will like it. And I think that's always fun. For me, a map that gives you so many different expansion options is a map that stays fresher for longer and just provides for a lot of different strategies. And it's one of the baseline kind of concepts of how to make maps interesting, right? If you can have different options, if you can do multiple different things, the map typically is going to be more interesting, right? So, yeah, something to take some note of as we get set up. Hatchery will come down on the bottom side, so just going to build up the fourth base over here. Get that going. And the couple voids and the +1 air weapons coming in as well. A couple of depths show up, and they are going to get rid of a few drones also, so not a bad little start to come in, deal some damage. NightMare, the one that's 1-0 down in this best of 5, of course, so and in a couple drones, not the best, but not the worst, and just hopefully setting himself up into a start that can bring him back into this series, because obviously he's not in the best of positions at the moment. The Void Ray continuing through, the couple of Lings still getting picked away at here, so Ling's still going down. I'm just going to be seeing this drone coming around and building up an extractor as well. It's getting set up for that too. And still being nibbled at, as you're just going to be seeing the Void Rays coming back around the top side. There is the Oracle just revelating up in the main base. Robo base still coming through here, +1 attack upgrade on the way in as well. And just going to be seeing the air weapons also about to finish. So we will actually finish up the air weapons here. I guess I find that kind of intriguing. You know, maybe we'll see +2, just because it feels like we're ready to go into this ground army so often nowadays. We'll see how many Void Rays we want to build. We'll see how quickly he wants to move into carriers and just full-on sky toss. The options really are there. The +1 upgrade in itself isn't interesting. There's the possibility of what you continue to do to utilize that +1 air weapons. You can see 12 Corruptors already on the way out, and it is, again, a ground transition at the moment, with the Temple Archives coming down and Charge already started, etc. +1 attack upgrade was coming through too. Like I say, we'll see exactly where this ends up in just a few moments' time. Void's out down to the south. We'll come and take down the 6 o'clock. Corruptors moving down the bottom side as well. Going to go in after those voids, and they're going to go and get chased. So a couple of voids already being hunted here. Going to get picked off pretty quickly. And that's, again, just, I mean, there's a lot of corruptors, right? And you could argue that with that amount of corruptors, it's almost overkill for what you're playing against. And that's fine. If it's overkill, it's overkill. It gets the job done. It means these voids don't have to do as much. Now the corruptors are going to go hunting for further damage, whether they can find the voids. Well, they're going to find the prism. Also, they have the option to caustic spray, and that's something which we know is... The Void Rays love a bit of caustic spray. The Corruptors love a bit of caustic spraying, right? And taking down a base. That's exactly what Solo will try and do. He's setting up an army coming off the creep that's already right out in the center of the map as well, and moving along towards the right. Disrupt Shot going to chase up the ramp, though, and a couple of Ravagers will be shot down straight away. So they get taken down without too much issue. That happens pretty quickly. Playing a Roach in the bottom right, then we'll want to see if that wants to come back up as the Archon's getting underneath those Corruptors, which are going to take a bit of damage as well. I mean, Corruptors, you still... It's kind of a weird one, because it's like, as long as the Corruptors are up, the Protoss is never going to build into more air units, but once the Corruptors are gone, building into more air units can absolutely go quite well for you, right? So it's a bit of a weird combination that can kind of come out of that as we just see our Nexus still coming into the main right there, and just having to rebuild that back up after the Corruptors were indeed successful on that initial caustic spraying of the game. Knocking down some rocks. NightMare is actually pushing forward himself, at least opening up the pathways. I mean, do you really want to be the aggressor, NightMare? I get that this is a lower tech army, and maybe if you fight on the edge of creep or just off creep, this will be okay or good enough for you. Maybe that is a possibility. We've seen our Archons continue to sit here and just going to be having the Lingbane running into it. Not going to be able to do too well here as we just see the rest of these Archons coming through, and that's going to be about it just for the moment. I was just going to see our Zards and Stalkers continue to move along and making their way across. I mean, we've still got this fight trying to set up on the bottom side, so with the fight happening on the bottom side, hopefully you can maybe get something done with this as we push on in. Stalkers gonna get caught by a surrounding set of Lings, and I mean, NightMare is honestly trading decently. Like I say, it was a scary position to walk into over here, but he's approached it properly. Like, if there was ever a way to make this work, this was it. This was absolutely it. And Roach is still setting up. The +2 air weapons is going to be finishing soon. The Ling is coming across, and we're going to try and deny this topside 5th base from coming online, as otherwise you do see NightMare in a position to, you know, if he gets this up, gets to 5 bases of mine, well, that's obviously great for him. That's more than enough. I mean, 4 bases is already pretty comfortable here against a Solar who is on 5. Look at resources lost in this game, 7,000 to 12,000. It's been way more efficient for our Protoss players. So NightMare's playing a very good game in terms of just trading well and taking some good fights and improving his army. And, you know, now there's only 8 Corruptors out. The carriers are coming through, and they might be, you know, a force to be reckoned with. Something you can absolutely get some damage done against. So, something else to be cautious of there as Roachling back through the top. Those few Lings going to go jumping on top of a few of the cannons and picking their way through those. And, I mean, again, just trying to deny this base. Really doesn't want it to get up in the slightest, apparently. It really wants to try and get a denial on that, if at all possible. So the Runbys continue to the bottom side as the Corruptors came back up the top. Well, losing Corruptors right now ain't good because obviously the carriers are coming out. So you actually do want these Corruptors this time around. You know, these Corruptors want to stay in the game. Missing out on them is going to be a little bit frustrating. Carriers and Stalkers continue through, making their way along at the moment. Just going to be seeing ourselves pushing on the left-hand side. A bit of this creep spread continuing to go down at the moment. So a good amount of creep being denied. We're going to blink in with these Stalkers. Disruptor shot fires, and a few of the Banelings going to get hit as well. Well, Army from NightMare has been pushing at good times throughout the game. Is this one going to be one of those moments? As you start to lose out on the carries, I start to feel like this is not so pretty. But the corruptor count is going down. Might need a few corrosive vials, if anything else, to actually just help out here, because this is becoming a little bit more problematic now for sure. The carriers continue to kind of stay alive, while the rest of the Zerg army on the ground will push across to the other side of the map, because the ground army has been wiped out, and that means that Solar can at least focus on corruptors for reproduction here, so you can just get up and answer to the carriers that are really the only issue at the moment. Yeah, absolutely the big problem is Solar down on supply, though, and he's going to have a couple of zealots down over here he has to deal with as well, so that's another issue to contend with right now. Just flying through, these carriers still being cleaned out, taking a lot of damage, and, well, maybe this time NightMare did come forward a little bit too soon. He's been very aggressive this game, and at times I really feel like it was, again, well thought out and well handled, but this time, I mean, it's a dangerous way to, it's dangerous to judge that repeatedly, right? In this case, I feel like you're really getting punished for it. That's going to be seeing the battery going down. These few Stalkers will continue to drop. The Lings with us around on this. The Roach is coming through. All these Stalkers continue to just get cleaned on up, and those Corruptors continue to chase in for the Carriers as well. Carriers will continue to die, and this should just be a resolution to game 2 soon. If the Carriers are all dead, I mean, it's going to come down to a ground army. Well, maybe the ground army can stand up for itself for a while. That's not impossible, right? It can, put a bit of fight up. It's possible, it's possible. I just don't know how big of a believer I am at the moment. So Lings and Roaches are back along to the right-hand side. So again, they show up, and again, they look for damage. Lings and Roaches just trying and clean up these Zealots one more time. They've, again, been very consistent. Got to give credit to NightMare there. One thing he's done very well has been harassing consistently with these Zealots, continuing to bring them across the map repeatedly, and just trying to break into these bases and deal good damage. A little Baneling run by will get rid of a little bit of static defense. It's just going to remove that from the equation, and on we go as you see our Lings continuing across. Voids and our Stalkers still making their way down over here as well, and just having this army of NightMare coming all the way through. Lings, Broods, Roaches set up at the moment. Well, as I was going to go jumping onto this Queen as well, so picking away at that is, again, just, we actually have a game that's going to draw out a little bit. I did think after that previous fight that maybe NightMare had gone too far and Soul would be able to just continue through and win, but the issue was that then he had a lot of Corruptors, but not a lot of ground army, and so again, that kind of swing of, the balance of ground versus air kind of came into play one more time. Having another impact on the game. It's been a wild one, guys. It's actually been a pretty fantastic game here on Tropical Sacrifice, and I feel like we've seen a good example of how the bases work, and getting to see a bunch of these different bases. I mean, pretty much every base on the map taken right now, apart from one of the center bases and the two far out edge bases, which is, I mean, if you're going to get to a point where all the bases are taken, those are the ones you're expecting not to be had. So maybe we'll get there if this game continues through anyway. Void Ray is coming through, and they will laser down the Corruptor. And again, this dance continues once you've gotten to this point where you've got enough... you get to this point where there's enough Void Rays, you can go back into Carriers, and then you've got to build Corruptors, then you've got to deal with that Air Army again, and that's just the ping-pong game of this PvZ right now. Back and forth, one side to the other, ground to air to ground. It's just been non-stop as DTs are coming into play. A different form of harassment to try and help NightMare out here. He's seeing 15 drones going down. It's actually a pretty serious hit to Solo's economy because those are drones he has to replace, and that means he's not building up as much of a bank as he would have liked. Less bank means just a little bit of a worse time in this game in general as continue along. Broodlords, Corruptors, out down on the bottom side here. The Ling Roach, Baneling continue to come in as well. Voids and Carriers continuing through and just going to be seeing the Storm coming down, actually hitting pretty big. Well, the Roaches on the ground are going to go down, but the Broodlords are supporting at the moment. The Corruptors trying to stay out of storms and keep themselves in positions they can stay competitive in. If the Corruptors can keep themselves alive, then that will be some good going. Obviously, if the Corruptors stay alive, the Broods should typically be protected. And if the Broods are protected, that should continue to be advantageous for you. And then you can still have something to fight the ground army, even if your Roaches are not quite cutting it. The support of those Broodlings is pretty big right now as Sola still pushes up this right-hand side. Trying to take position over here, trying to make something happen. Doesn't find it yet. The few Broodlings will hit from afar. And just not quite able to land just yet on anything too meaningful, but it's coming. I'm feeling it, guys. I'm believing. Broodlords continue across and just going to be firing onto that Nexus. The rest of this army continuing in as well. Flame probes currently dropping. You're going to see Voids, Carriers, everything coming in. Ling's going to get hit by a big storm there, so that's going to be a nice little denial as well. Let's see if these Voiders can get through the Corruptors. They're activated into Prismatic Alignment, and the Corruptors just weren't fighting them. They're busy fighting Interceptors and derping around. That's not how you win this fight at all, Solar, as these Void Rays of NightMare are going to get enough done. Just going to be seeing these Void Rays continuing to work through this. The Stalker's coming in from the bottom side, right-hand side. Clean out the last Broodlord. Solar will counterattack and try and take down a base and some economy, but his main army is gone, and he didn't get rid of the Void Rays at all. And that was, I think, what he really needed to get done in that last few moments there. So not doing that is going to put you in a bit of a crappy position, and to the point of having to type out those horrible, horrible letters of GG and admitting defeat. NightMare will tie this up 1-1 in the best of 5. Guys, off the back of the break, thank you for sticking through with us. Watching the few ads helps us out a lot. Uncolored Llama helping us out a lot as well on the Prime sub for the fresh new sub. Thank you so much and appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. Also, thank you to My Name is Bandit for the 4-month resub on the Prime. Probably at the start of that last game or so if I had to guess when exactly it came in. But thank you so much. Do appreciate it as we get started into map number 3. In the top right-hand corner, the Blue Protoss player from Team NV showing up and delivering a victory in that last map. He's been good lately and showing us that he really can compete in these events, which is great to see. It is NightMare. Bottom left, our red Zerg player is Solar, who will be a heavy favorite here in the quarterfinals, but, in the round of 12. Forgetting that after this, we've got the winner of this versus Spirit to come, so that's still coming up. More SC2 action here today, guys, and again, we got you covered for a good long stream. 6 best of 5s in total, 2 down. This is best of 5 number 3, so plenty of games still to come. Like I say, a fun day of SC2 continuing. Nothing so crazy on the startup, right? Hatchcats pool, Nexus comes in with the core, and that part of the game is going to be fairly well figured out and going the way one would expect it to. So, like I say, no surprises for the moment. Now we're just going to scout across, try and see what's going on. And And yeah, just Link Speed Star and Stargate opening once again. Lost Facility, this luscious green map. You can see that coming into play right now, and just going to be having the probe going across to the upper right side to try and see a bit of what is happening here. Gonna see that Stargate still coming through, and just gonna be having a choice of obviously playing again this air army, or maybe going a bit more ground focused. This map, one of the bases that interests me most on this map, looking around it, is this one here. You know, you've got this high ground, then down over here, it's so centralized and it's such an open area. The benefit of holding it is that if you take this base and you can defend this base, you kind of defend the entranceway into a couple of your other bases, presumably. This is going to be a base which I imagine creates a lot of drama later in games. In kind of later game scenarios, maybe not so much. It's not a base we've seen taken so far in this event, just to put it into perspective. It's not a base we're expecting to see taken every time by a long stretch of the imagination, but it's the one base I've wondered about the most on Lost Facility, which is otherwise looked pretty good and solid overall. Again, coming in from the standard category, it's not meant to do anything too funky. It's just meant to be good, normal, standard, something you can enjoy a little bit of. As the Void Ray continues through over here. After the first Void Ray and Oracle, what are we going to go into next? I mean, Void Ray alone suggests not any kind of 3 Oracle play, so you can take that off the list, if nothing else. Which is obviously nice. Be able to take that idea away. We do just see the Queens coming through. The Oracle going to take a little bit of damage. Queen's just going to move around. Obviously, they want to defend against the Oracle here if necessary, and we'll continue to try and do that to the best of their ability as we just have our Lings moving onto the map to try and go for some denial as well. In the end, it is second Stargate, Robo, and a Forge. I mean, Forge, then the Robo pretty quick after the Forge, so might still only see like 4 Void Rays here and then into that transition nice and quickly, get that set up right away. And a few drones going down. The Adept's going to shade up in toward the main base, and they're going to move through it as well, so away they go. That's going to be seen, Adepts continuing down the right. A few drones do go down. Again, nicely just, nicely done. Just got a little bit of damage dealt right away, and just continuing through as Queens, Roaches, Ravages all still gathering up together. The Oracle's still cruising now down the bottom side of the map as well. Yes, a couple of Void Rays continue to fight onto these Ravages. Single Corrosive Bile goes down. Void Ray does dodge away from that. As the Queen Walk comes across from Sol, he created that single lane of creep spread up through the center, so trying to utilize that to jumpstart the attack here. And like I say, across the map we start going. Ravages, Lings, and Queens still pressing through. A couple of Void Rays will try and hold the ground. I mean, they want to try and get rid of some of the Ravages, remove some of the Corrosive Biles before they get on top of static defense, but wasn't able to get any kills just yet, so, I mean, shouldn't be too surprising. There's Queens there for transfusions, right? It's going to be difficult to grab kills in that scenario as continue through, and the Ravages continuing to fight. There is obviously some of the static defense going down. I mean, the Cannon's holding on a while, and there's extra static defense building behind this. A lot of this is buying time for your extra static defense to finish up, so kind of waiting on that still as we continue through. And as all end up getting cancelled, this base is going to go down. What's our Void Ray count at the moment? It's 4, going up to 6. The problem here is it's not really enough Void Rays to go across the map with and be like, haha, counterattack, you know? You weren't ready for this, right? It's not really enough for that in the slightest, so they're kind of stuck really trying to make something of the, you know, of kind of just, I don't even know. Like, I mean, it's fine for Solo to just deny the third base, and now he's droning and building a lair, and he's just going to be able to tech up from here, and he is just going to put himself into a good position, straight up, right? I mean, not really much else to say about it. Put himself in a good spot here, and well established as we do see our Lings and our Ravagers wrapping around. Just going to clear out some more rocks. Plenty of voids are once again over on the far right hand side, so I'm gonna go hang out over there as well. Spy coming through, a couple extra extractors coming up. The Roach Speed is a building, and obviously Solo making full use of that lair tech. Now that it's online, he can invest into so many things that he didn't have open to him before. And like I say, obviously we'll want to make good use of that whenever possible. I mean, get all the tech online. Get everything going for yourself here. Tommy sits out the front, just going to sit out on the hatchery as the creep spread has continued to press on forward. Ling's still coming through. Spire is not far from finishing. And we only just now get the third base back online for our Protoss players, so again, it kind of really puts in perspective how slow he is going to be getting into his economy, and you would imagine that Solo's going to get maxed out and we'll be able to take some good fights, very akin to the first game and how that played out in Solo's favor, right? He did very well initially. He came across the map once he denied a base and just to take an advantage, and even though NightMare was able to take some okay trades, Solo just had so much of an advantage from what he'd done early, and NightMare wasn't really able to properly get back into the game at all, so yeah, maybe something along those lines. NightMare starts up Temple Archives +1 in charge. I mean, he's doing the right things. He's getting what he needs. What I do want to see from him to get back into this is going to be counterattacks, right? Play with those zealots, get those aggressive, run them into bases, you know, make the most of what you have right now. You know, make absolutely the most of what you're given and try and get something done with it, as you can see the Void Rays coming through that. Mutas coming in. Yeah, I like the mutas as well from Solo. It's not like his opponents had a chance to really build into like a lot of their units based on what's been happening before now. Just gonna see how mutas coming in and just gonna be going through there initially. I mean, continue to deal some damage and really base trade, as if you can just hold on at home, the damage you will eventually do across the map here is typically going to be good enough to put you in a good spot, right? So expecting that to be a factor. The army is going to have the zealots in front to try and soak up a bunch of that damage. Let's see if it can do enough. Pushing on through, and the Creators up in the main base, still dealing good damage. I mean, at this point, they're about to pick their way through the entirety of the Nexus. So that pretty much is going to be game, and it is going to be Sola taking it down. Alright, well that will do it for this one as we wrap up and move through into a 2-1 lead from Sola here. He's going to be taking the lead back. And I'm going to start up with the player in the lead in the blue. Zerg from Kaiser Gaming is Sola. NightMare is in the bottom right side. He comes down here. Cosmic Sapphire to me still has this what to me just looks like a weird like little opening on the natural. Like, I know it's just like this extended alleyway. I almost felt like that was kind of a since I first saw it, I was like, whoa, that looks so strange to move through, right? Like, you know, breaking out of your own natural can be tough because you have to basically fight through an extended choke point. But then obviously breaking into your natural is going to be difficult as well. So that's something which works both ways. I guess just don't get contained and and the map's okay. It just looks weird, but to be fair, we've not really seen anything in particular which has been extremely kind of like negative on, in regards to that, so it's kind of just been fine. A couple drones are continuing up, and obviously our early game PVZ, not a lot changes. We do have the gold-based bottom left corner of this map as well. We've not seen a game that's gone long enough for that to come into play. Outside of maybe did Bly try and take the gold on this map or so? I'm not sure if it was this map. I think it was another map he went a bit crazy on. House did some crazy things with some gold bases too, but I don't think Cosmic Sapphire was the owner of any of those games. It still looks like Hotel Corridor as well. It's probably not going to look any different overnight, You go to sleep and, you go into your hotel room at night, you wake up in the morning, the corridor is still the same, right? I understand what you mean. It does almost feel, just because it doesn't feel like it's meant to be that long, it does almost feel like a little bit endless. I kind of get that vibe from it, at least. So that is, again, not in a bad way, just interesting. Like I say, it's definitely a fairly unique feature to the map, it would seem, compared to what you usually see. And it ain't bad to have things that are a little bit unique, right? It ain't bad to have things that are different map to map, and which haven't been done before. To me, that's what makes a fun, interesting map, in fact, right? That's kind of what we want. Give us interesting maps. Give us things that are different. That's the exciting part of StarCraft, and that's the exciting part of these map contests, when the games do go a bit different, when they do look not quite the same as the last. As going to be seen, our link speed coming through, the Void Ray Adept, all of this continuing up, and another gateway dropping down. As you just see, our two Adepts going to go splitting over to different sides, one to the right, one to the left here initially, as we get that underway. Void pops out. This Overlord moving forward is going to get tagged up by this Void Ray pretty swiftly, and that's going to get taken down. Oracle on the way as they follow up from NightMare, so continuing through with a pretty standard kind of 1-2 set of production. We've seen it before in this series even, so really no surprises in that regard. As the Void Ray moves all the way up the right side, it's going to go grab the Ovi, work through that, and onwards we go. Oracle back over the left, and the Void Ray will go hunting for some damage it can deal itself. So try and clean out a link on the Watchtower, and this Watchtower does cover a little bit of that upper right pathway as well. No Watchtower bottom left of the map. Of course, these maps are symmetrical in a different way to what most maps are. So yeah, only one tower, and it does again cover mostly that bottom side, or the kind of the central top pathway. The super far top right is not visible from that Watchtower, so it doesn't tell you all about the super far rights. There are still directions you can sneak around if you want to sneak a drop by, or just sneak kind of a walk by or run by. Walk by. We're gonna walk by. If you want to sneak like a run by of units and stuff as well, right? Like there's really a bunch of options that you have in that regard, so. Always nice. Options are good, just having... one of the reasons Xel'Naga Watchtowers got removed from the meta of maps for a long time was that it just kind of became the point where it was like, well, if you have a Xel'Naga tower, it just gives you too much information, right? Because it was just standard that every map would have one. And it just was the case. That was like every map having one just meant that some of the smaller maps, you could just see everything on it. It was like, oh, good, that's not good, right? Like, you hold the Watchtower, you get free vision all game long. It's ridiculous, so that's why obviously nowadays it's not as common to see. Then we went through the opposite effect where Xel'Naga towers were like deemed bad, and so nobody made them at all. Well, it wasn't that they were bad. They just needed to be kind of put on, they didn't necessarily need to be on every single map was the real situation, right? So Yeah, it didn't really need to be on every single map. As we got ourselves set up here. Our upgrades continuing through as we start on in. Just going to be having our melee upgrade coming in from Solo, so he's going to play an aggressive set of Lings here, it would seem initially. Oracle still trying to zap down a couple of drones and just seeing what else will go on. Oracle gets shot down. Oh, this gets a little bit too adventurous. Always a shame to lose the Oracle. The map vision and control it gives you is typically very nice, so a shame to be losing out on that. Actually going to build Colossus here as NightMare. He sees the Lings and says, well, if you're going Ling heavy, then Colossi, some actual splash damage that will just stay up throughout the game and consistently deal damage throughout fights is not a bad thing to invest into. And he ain't wrong, guys. He is not wrong. Absolutely is a reasonable way to take this. As you see, the Lings just still sitting down on the bottom side and seeing how they can get involved. Ling's going to break through onto this bottom side now, and that battery's going to go down. These few probes are going to be in a bit of trouble, and yeah, we're going to see a bunch of those really starting to drop off here as well. So 4 probes already going down, and taking a pretty reasonable amount of damage as well, right? I mean, it's a lot of work as you lose out on. Not the greatest here for NightMare, but it's not the end of the world either. Meters on the way, more and more of them from Sol as he wants to keep up the pressure, and yeah, keep up the pressure. Not a bad idea either, as we're just going to see our meters coming in once again here, and chasing a few Stalkers down. Six more probes altogether in this game. Only 11 workers down, so it's not being super deadly from the meters just yet. Few Lings here and there, finding like extra Stalkers. Now these Stalkers being brought out the right side to fight that. You're going to see the meters diving back in on the left-hand side. So they're going to come back through and again have some successes. They're able to do okay, and just going to be seeing the Stalkers moving forward. I mean, thinking about fighting, I mean, obviously with the meters in play, the army of the Zerg, in theory, is not that good in a straight-up fight, so they'll be missing out on a little bit at the moment. Something to think about and consider. Stalker's still coming through over that side. And it looks as though NightMare wants to try and force something. I mean, Solo's maxed out. He's got the meters back into the main. But we'll say for the amount of meters he's made, it doesn't feel like he's got too much. Right? It doesn't feel like he's gotten too much damage done with them, but now he's going to get a lot more done. He cleans out these Stalkers, and he's getting a lot more probes. And that might be where the difference really starts to come into play here, as these Stalkers... I mean, he just can't control this with Stalkers right now, so Stalkers are having a really bad time, getting absolutely beat up on. And these Mutas are going to have a lot of fun here, and that's problematic, as Lings are running through too, and now Solo's starting to make this game just, well, absolutely avalanche in his favor. One little thing has become something else, and while NightMare held on well for a little while, it has all just seemingly happened at once here, but everything has started to fall apart. It does look as though we have got ourselves a situation which is NightMare is all in with one attack, and I mean, it was always it felt like it was going to be a base trade, but then NightMare never committed to going across the map, so he took all the damage of a base trade without any ever base trading himself. Well, that's unacceptable, right? You can't let that much happen and then not do anything yourself. I mean, it just doesn't work like that. It's completely you just can't, right? You straight up just can't let this happen. And I guess indecision from NightMare. Now we do see obviously base trade will initiate, and you're in this position where Raiders are still deciding to stay across the map. There's only 6 probes left. I mean, you have such a jump start on this base trade here as Solo that I don't see... I think base trading just is the right idea. Why try ever to fight that army? Because again, you really do just have a massive base trading advantage at the moment. Here's we'll get rid of the Nexus on the top side. probes moving through that. And we will see if, again, there's 0 probes left on the map, right? So it very much is coming down to the structures that are already up. There's nothing that's going to build in the top left, so this is actually going to be an absolute base race. And NightMare knows he can't win it, so he types out GG with no probes left on the map. I mean, that was always going to be the big question. If there was going to be probes on the map, maybe something had happened. Without probes, it was going to be tough. GG's, and it is going to be still a 3-1 into the quarterfinals.